Editha's Days, Chapter 1, The Anabaptist and His Book.
The angel flew with one wing,
whispered Stephen reverently.
Yes,
I answered softly. We two children stood hand in hand before the wooden image of the one-winged angel. Stephen had wished to come to look at him again, but we were always very quiet when we were there. We did not wish to disturb anybody in the religious house. But it was so strange to see an angel that had flown into England at one time, bringing a spearhead. The very same spearhead, the priests said, that pierced the Savior's side when he hung on the cross. All the priests said so. It would be very wicked in anyone to doubt it, and Stephen and I were sure that it was true. Why does the angel stay here all the time? I whispered now to my sober cousin. The angel might fly again. Stephen looked at the angel's wooden form and thought very seriously for a while.
Perhaps the angel cannot fly anymore, he suggested at last. Perhaps he has stood so long that he has forgotten how. And it must be very hard to fly with one wing. Cousin Editha, I saw a bird once that had a broken wing, and it could not fly, though its other wing was not hurt at all. How did this angel fly with only one wing?
But I shook my head in reply. I could not explain. I only believed that it must be so. Perhaps, continued Stephen, his forehead drawn into wrinkles with his puzzled thinking, if I should go outdoors some night, I might see an angel fly. Not this angel, because I suppose he likes this place so well that he will never want to fly again, but another angel. And if I do, and if he has only one wing, I will find out how he flies, and then I will remember to tell you, Editha. There was a little noise, and I pulled Stephen's hand. We went softly out and hurried away. We were always afraid that some of the priests might not like us to look at the angel, and yet the priests let pilgrims see him. It was like going to visit a person, Stephen and I thought. I do not think that either my mother or Stephen's knew how much we children loved the angel, or how often we went to see him. Neither my mother nor my aunt would have objected, for they often went themselves, and my mother would sometimes tell us proudly that at the monastery of Hales in Gloucestershire, she had been shown a vial that a great many pilgrims flocked to see. The priests said that the vial contained some of the blood of the Redeemer, but only those persons who had paid for enough masses could see the blood. All other people would look at the vial in vain, and although my poor mother tried as hard as she could to see the blessed sight, she saw nothing. Notwithstanding, she paid more money, even all she had. My father had told her that she was foolish to pay money for the sight, but it was always a great source of regret afterward to my mother that she could not see the blood, though she was proud to have seen the vial. My father, from the time I could remember, was always increasingly doubtful of the tales of the monks and the friars. But my mother and Stephen's mother believed everything. I might have seen it, my mother always regretfully repeated when she told us children the story of her unsuccessful look at the holy vial of Hales. I am sure I might have seen it. If I only had money enough to have paid for 2 or 3 more masses, I wish I had seen the blood. But my mother seldom spoke thus when my father was near. She would not talk much before him about such things, knowing that he was doubtful of them. And indeed, one day he shocked her by saying that he had heard that the Blessed Bottle of Hales was only a cheat made by the priests in order to secure money. "The bottle is thick on one side," asserted my father, with indignation in his voice, "so that no one may see into it. And at first the priests keep that side turned toward a pilgrim. But the bottle holds blood truly, I hear, only it is the blood of a duck. And after the priests have told a man to repent and buy masses, and after the man has paid all the money he can, sometimes the priests secretly turn the bottle round. And then, of course, the man sees the blood, and the poor man is glad, not knowing how meanly he is cheated. But it makes me angry that the priests should be so wicked as to say that it is the blood of the Redeemer in that bottle. The priests, yes, the priests are liars." My father arose in great anger as he ended, and my mother clasped her hands and preserved a shocked silence. She afterward prayed to the saints that my father might be forgiven for making such a statement. But she spoke no more in his presence of the Blessed Bottle of Hales, though she told us children that the king himself, Henry VIII, believed in that bottle. "It must be a true relic," added my mother reverently. I think that my father was very unhappy in those days, for he could not believe the priests, and he hardly knew where else to go for help. Oh, England was so dark then. So many people were stumbling in that darkness. But my mother diligently taught me, so that I believed with great faith in the one-winged angel of the spearhead, and in many other false things. My father, for some months past, had been in the habit of going to see an old man named John Eld, who lived in a little hut in our town. The walls were of mud, and such pieces of timber as could be laid hold of, and the ridged roof was thatched over with straw. But then the houses that Stephen and I lived in were not very large or good either. The old man, John Eld, had a book that my father, who often took me with him, charged me never to speak about to anyone, not even to Stephen or to my mother. It was a book called the New Testament, and my father said that a scholar named William Tyndale had written it out from Greek into English for the English people, and the priests were very angry. And if they should ever find that neighbor Eld had a copy of the book, they would come and make him give it up, and perhaps treat him cruelly. And so I must never, never tell about it. My father went to neighbor Eld's to hear him read the New Testament, and I too listened eagerly, although I feared it was something mother would not like to have me do. But which was right, my father or my mother? I was greatly puzzled. Often, when my father and I were there, neighbor Eld would read to us in his New Testament a story about a man who went down from one town to another and fell among thieves, who robbed him and left him half dead. And when a priest came that way, he would not help the poor man. And neighbor Eld would also say that the priest of this story was like the priests now, for they had no pity on poor English souls that sin had left bleeding, and the priests would not come to their help. The priests would even hinder the Good Samaritan, William Tyndale, who sought to bring the comfort of the gospel to England. And then my father and old neighbor Eld would talk of things of which I knew nothing. Once I heard my father say, "I wish I could read as well as you can." And after that, neighbor Eld used to help father about some of the longer words that bothered him in the book. But indeed, my father already could read quite well. But I did not tell my cousin Stephen anything I heard at neighbor Eld's, I could keep a secret, if I was only a girl. I knew the very chink in the mud wall where neighbor Eld hid his New Testament. He covered the hole with a piece of dry mud like the wall, and no one would have known that anything was hidden there. But do you think that I would have told where that hole was? When Stephen and I hurried away from the wooden angel that afternoon, we ran down the street till we came near its end. A priest was walking there, one we had never seen before. Stephen and I would have run away again, but the priest stopped us and asked us if we knew in which hut a man named John Eld lived. We pointed in the direction and watched him as he walked toward the hut, not far from home. "Neighbor Eld will not be home," said Stephen softly to me. "He weaves all day." But the priest pushed open the door of neighbor Eld's low hut and went inside. "You will not find him," declared Stephen again. But I was startled by a sudden thought. "Oh!" I cried. "Oh, if he finds—" I had almost said, "the New Testament." I stopped, frightened enough to think I had nearly revealed the secret, even to Stephen. I snatched my hand away from my cousin and ran toward neighbor Eld's hut. There was a small hole in one rickety side, a hole through which a person could look from outdoors. I was determined to see what that priest was doing. "Editha! Editha!" called Stephen from the distance, but I did not answer. I went softly around the little hut, and my bare feet made no noise as I stole toward the hole. Cautiously, I dropped on my knees and put my eyes to the crevice in the wall. I could see somewhat inside, for the priest had left the door a little open to give light. He was evidently trying to find something. He walked around the room, stopping to stir with his stick the straw of neighbor Eld's bed. He looked very fierce, and I trembled as he came nearer my place of observation. "He will see me," I thought in trepidation, and I drew back quickly. I heard the stick rattle in the corner next to me and caught my breath. But the footsteps inside the hut passed on, and I put my face again to the hole. Near the corner toward which the priest was going was the place in the wall where neighbor Eld always hid his New Testament. Oh, was that priest going to find it? I held my breath in fear as he struck with his stick here and there, muttering impatiently to himself. The priest drew nearer to the spot. There, he was just in front of the hiding place. I strained my eyes to see. The priest hastily brushed by the spot, and his mutterings grew louder. I wondered if he was really sure that neighbor Eld had a New Testament. But the priest did not find it. "Editha! Editha!" called Stephen's voice again. The boy was coming toward the hut, and I did not dare to stay. I sprang softly to my feet and ran swiftly away from the place. Neither Stephen nor I paused until we came safely to our own homes. "I will tell neighbor Eld that a priest went into his house," I resolved, indignant that anybody should trespass upon the old man's belongings during his absence. But day after day went by, and still neighbor Eld's door remained shut. He seemed to have disappeared from the day of the stranger priest's visit. When I told my father of the strange thing I had seen, he looked very grave. "Did the priests do anything to neighbor Eld, father?" I asked, struck with fear. "He did read us good things." My father did not answer, but that day he went to neighbor Eld's hut and examined the crevice in the wall where the New Testament had usually been hidden. It was gone. Neighbor Eld and his book had disappeared together. I heard my father murmur to himself something that I did not understand. It is hard for the old Anabaptist." What was an Anabaptist. And what did my father mean? I had never before heard that word with which I was to become so familiar before many years had gone by. I did not know what Anabaptists had already suffered in England, nor did I know that it was one charge against the hated and persecuted Lollards that they would not baptize their infant children. Neither was I aware that he who nearly 150 years before had translated into English the whole Bible, which now, alas, had become almost unreadable because of the changes wrought in our language, had suffered the execrations of priest and prelate because of his belief. Some have said that he was an Anabaptist. The end of chapter 1.